When you're moving an aquarium, it's really, really important that you level it. You need to make sure it's level. The silicone is very, very strong that way, but not very strong that way. So that's why it's very important that it's level. So you need to double check that. And then when you're using an opportunity like moving, it's a really great time to change. So in this case, there's discussion about potentially breeding fish. So something like a pair of convicts or something like some crebensis. If you haven't bred before, have something that's quite easy to breed. And then you could even think about something like some mollies for the top. So the crebensis or the convicts are likely to eat some of the baby mollies. But if you put a bit of floating plant at the top, the baby mollies will be at the top and they'll be in and amongst the floating plant. And then if you put some like nice plant at the bottom that the babies can get into for a fish like the crebensis, then some crebensis and some mollies in here would really be quite nice. You could also get some bristlenose catfish because they breed as well. So you could literally, if lucky, you could have like a pair of breeding crebensis, maybe some breeding bristlenose, and then maybe some mollies or something along the top. And watching the little babies and watching them breed is really, really interesting. And then when I was growing up as a kid, what I'd do is breed a certain type of fish. Once I'd bred them a couple of times, I'd trade in all the babies at the aquarium shop, and then I'd usually get something different because I'm a big fan of change is king. Don't have the same stuff too long, otherwise you've seen the tank. If you get any of this sort of white stuff, sort of looks like that, or any of this sort of white, if you soak it in citric acid, it's really a good way of that calcium breaking down, and you can clean up a lot of your equipment quite nicely with citric acid. So what we're doing at the moment is picking out fish that are just pretty plain and then not returning them to the tank because their colors are a bit on the average side. Now it's also really good before you move fish like this. You see all that shit? That's lots of shit that they've shitted on the way here. It's really good to not feed them for a couple of days before a move like this. And it's really good to have given the tank a real good cleanup before something like this. Easy to say now. And then we want to focus on fattening these fish up. Want to see some better quality food. I'd feed them about 5 times a week, what they eat in 30 seconds. And I'm watching their belly and just slowly fatten them up a bit. Because these guys are a little bit lean and mean. Interesting with fish is if you have an aquarium and you have heaps and heaps of fish in it, then fish actually emit pheromones and phenols, and pheromones and phenols actually stunt their growth. So what happened in one case here is a little baby was put into another aquarium without too many fish, and the little baby way outgrew how fast the fish grow in this tank. Because the less fish you have in the tank, the faster they grow. The more water changes you do, the more you dilute the pheromones and phenols, and the faster they grow. And the use of products like polyfilter, which will adsorb and absorb things like phenols out of the water, will also help the animals grow fast. So quality food and quality water and water changes and plenty of space is how you let them grow nice and quick. But if you don't change your water enough, or you've got too many, you can notice that the fish hardly grow. And that's normal. Refilling the aquarium. It's summer here, or well, it's still warm here in Sydney, so no problem. But if it's winter, you don't want to go doing too big a water change, otherwise you can shock the fish if you're not watching the temperature. So what we're going to do now is just keep an eye on the temperature, and then every 5 centimeters we're going to put in another dose of water ager, because it's important that we keep the water ager in there so we don't put chlorine into the tank. And currently the tank is about 24 degrees, and the water out of the tap would probably be a little bit less than 24 degrees. So we'll just keep an eye on that temperature now, and we'll keep dosing the water ager until the aquarium is full. And this is something you'll get away with in the warmer months. In the colder months, I don't want to change so much. It's too risky. Hey mate, hey buddy. So in this case, the KH is 4, which is fairly low, but on the low side for this tank. I'm not going to recommend doing anything about it now, but over time I am going to want to add some KH buffer. pH is alkaline, so I'm happy with that. And then next time you take a water sample to the shop, you definitely want to check on GH as well, because the 3 most important products for you to have is water ager, KH and GH. And when you bring a sample to the shop, we can tell you if you need more of the KH or GH. Because over time, the KH tends to fall, the pH tends to fall, and the GH tends to come up. So that's worth knowing. And there's a lot of coral in here, so this pH is very likely to stay at about 7.8. You do a job, it's really important to check your electricals, do a head count. So we've got the heater, we've got the filter, we've got the air pump, and we've got the power head. So you want to account for all your equipment and make sure it's all plugged in and make sure it's all working before you leave. And surface agitation is very, very important. We're going to move this aquarium now, and we're going to put the Oscar into the main aquarium. Knowing full well the Oscar is probably going to eat a couple of the littler fish, but then this tank will then be available for breeding fish. Set this tank up to breed, and you've got another little tank here that we can use for babies, for growing babies up, because change is king. And we want to get rid of this crappy fish food, get some good fish food, get plenty of good aeration and agitation in this tank. We really never want to see this. We never want to see outlets at the bottom of the tank. We actually want outlets at the top of the tank, so they agitate the water, but in this case the filter's not even on. So I'll suss that out. Some citric acid will help to clean all that up. And then moving Mr. Oscar there. Activated carbon in the aquarium, it's quite a good idea, but after about a month, make sure you chuck the carbon out and replace it, because it'll suck in waste until it's full and then potentially let it back out again. So it is important you replace carbon regularly if you're going to use it. With your air pump, if you're going to have it below the surface of the water, you want to make sure you've got a check valve in it. Otherwise, if you turn off the pump, it's possible the air can flow back in and blow the pump up and flood your house, which isn't as fun as you'd think. Hey dog, hey buddy. Now the fish are all moved, and we're just going to keep an eye on that Oscar. Chances are he'll be fine. And we're going to make sure that the air stone doesn't end up near the inlet, because we don't want the bubbles going into the inlet and stuffing the filter up. We also want to just try to be aware of this outlet. So we really want this outlet, see, breaking the surface as much as possible. The more the surface is broken, like that, the better your gas exchange is. And then even with this thing, if we can sort of turn that up a little bit, see, like, so it's breaking the water. That's what we really want. We want the water nice and broken, because the broken water is what allows gas exchange. If the surface is too flat, the gas doesn't exchange. So if we can run an extra airline up, then we just hide the airline, redecorate the tank, and Bob's your uncle.